Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Sunday, February the 12th. Race number 8 at Santa Anita. 3-year-old fillies going 1 mile on the turf for $100,000. It's the Lady of Shamrock Stakes. Let's take a look at this field. Please scan the QR code for race of the day access on mobile. Morning line favorite, the 3, the Wild Grazer. 2 for 2 since shipping into North America for trainer Jeff Mullins. Gonna have to stretch out for the first time and face stakes competition for the first time.
Yeah, I like both of her races since she arrived over here, Dan. They're both going shorter than this, but she finished them both off pretty well. It kind of feels like she has enough tactical speed, especially on the stretch out here, that she should be in another good trip in this race. I don't know. I guess she's the horse to beat, but I thought there were a couple of other different ways to go.
Timeform US believes there'll be some speed in this race. We'll check out the pace projector. Red bar scenario, expected fast pace. Broadway Girls is getting back to her preferred surface. They tried a graded stakes race on dirt. This is the time of year to try. It didn't work out. It's obvious turf is her surface, and she likes to be forward.
Yeah, true enough. I suppose they'll go for the lead here. It's worth noting that both the 1 and the 7 are stablemates for trainer Doug O'Neill. So we'll see if they decide to go at it early, Dan. I don't know about you. When I went through this race, I didn't see it being run at a fast pace, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think it'll be more a fair pace than a fast pace, especially with the point you just made. Both of the expected speeds in this race trained by O'Neill. I would think Broadway Girls will be allowed to get to the lead. Maybe they'll try to rate her and let Niven go to the front. Niven has a lot to prove. But let's watch Niven. Her most recent race was her maiden win. It was at a mile on the turf. The first time they stretched her out around 2 turns, and she got very close to the pace, and she sprints on home as the favorite. She was better than this group. Now she gets a class and pace test.
Yeah, just hasn't run a fast race yet. This was a pretty soft trip on the lead here. They probably could have put her right up on the lead in this race, Dan, but they elected to sit outside of the horse who's going to wind up finishing second. And once she took over through the stretch, it was a pretty easy win for her. She still hasn't run a fast race yet. I suppose she could improve. I thought this was a pretty tough spot for her, though.
A filly that's hoping that red bar Timeform US pace projector scenario holds true is the 2, Tea in Conversation, because it appears she's more of a one-run closer at this stage of her career. I thought her maiden win was okay 2 starts back. Last time out in the Blue Norther, she got wired. She was making up some late ground.
Yeah, I thought she ran maybe a deceptively good race last time in the Blue Northern. I'm with you on her maiden win too bad. I thought she ran fine in there. I thought the trip was good. She won it pretty easily at the end. All in all, there was nothing really wrong with that performance when they stepped her up last time. You know, she just didn't really have a fair chance, in my opinion. She sat last in that race. The horses that were first, second, and third were up. You know, they were the top 3 throughout the running of that entire race. That and Tea in Conversation was the only one to make any kind of significant late run in there. And she just missed second and third at the end of that race. I thought that was a pretty good performance last time.
The number 3, the Wild Grazer, is your morning line favorite, but she is going to have to stretch out, and she's going to face stakes horses for the first time. I really love the way she handled the downhill turf course in this race. Start number 2 in North America for Jeff Mullins. This is an open first level allowance. She settled very nicely in behind the leaders. The dirt patch didn't bother her at all. She got to the outside, and she kicks on home, and I think she wins a little bit easier than it appears.
I do too. She always looked like she was going to win this race, in my opinion. This is a good performance. I like the way she's finished off both of her races, Dan. Now, I didn't necessarily see her being a 2-to-1 morning line favorite when I went through this race, but I guess I won't argue too hard with it. Personally speaking, if I never had to bet a horse stretching out in distance, I wouldn't, especially at short prices. But I do think this horse has looked good in both of her wins.
The runner-up from her most recent race did come back to run second again in a first-level allowance, albeit against Calbreds with a 79 Buyers speed figure. The 4 Ag Bullet has a lot of upside potential. Let's watch start number 2 in her career, her first ever race on turf, and she was going the straight course, 6.5 furlongs. She got a very easy lead in this race, Mike. You rarely see California fractions 23, 46 and change. No wonder she has enough to sprint home, but it appears she's found her niche on turf.
Yeah, I guess so. I thought she was a really tough call in this race, Dan. She got a figure for this race. She does win it easily here, geared down at the end. But when I watched the race, I just didn't really want anything to do with her in here. I couldn't believe how easily she made the lead in that race last time. That pace was super slow. Everybody just took a hold and let this filly walk on the lead in there. I know she looked good finishing it off, but she was supposed to. with the trip she got. I don't know, maybe she's really good and maybe she'll just win here, but she's the same price on the morning line as a stakes winner, Broadway Girls, around 2 turns in her career. I don't know. I didn't like this horse at all, but maybe she's good.
The 5 is Princess Bettina. Now, she finished behind the Wild Grazer in the race we showed you going down the hill at 6.5. She was 4th that day. Maybe she's just more effective as a 2-turn horse. She won her maiden 3 starts back. She was a close 3rd 2 starts back. I don't know, Mike. I think Princess Bettina is the kind of filly that has a little bit more tactical speed than it appears. Sure, she has to improve. She picks up Pratt. Maybe at 15-1, she can sneak into the exotics.
I agree with all that stuff. I think she can get a good trip in this race. She ran fine last time. You know, a little bit of traffic in that race where they just sat on the rail with her. I don't think she was beating the Wild Grazer regardless, but maybe she could have been a little bit closer if she had gotten clear in time. I don't mind her stretching back out. You know, personally speaking, Dan, I didn't think she had a big excuse 2 starts back, but I still thought she ran pretty well in that race, and she's going to be a price.
There are 2 prior stakes winners in this field. One of them is up next, the number 6, Quickly Park It, who won the Pike Place Dancer Stakes at Golden Gate at this mile distance, coming from well off of the pace. She might have been in too tough in the Jimmy Durante 2 starts back, a graded stakes race at Del Mar. What happened last time? That's the race that worries me, the Cal Cup Oaks.
It worries me too, because I spent a little bit of time trying to make a case for this filly in this race. She just didn't really fire at all in the Cal Cup Oaks last time. She did get hung up a little bit wide on the first turn down, but after that, her trip was fine and she just didn't really kick at all. Her Durante 2 starts back, you know, I thought maybe she had a little bit of traffic in that race as her rider just tried to stay towards the rail the entire way, but she also had a fast pace in front of her. And she didn't really run that well in there either. You can go back to the Pike Place Dancer, I guess, and like her off of that race, but she got a perfect trip that day against a pretty mediocre field.
The other stakes winner of the group is the 7, Broadway Girls. She's 2 for 2 on turf, going a rout of ground, including this upset 8-to-wire score in the Blue Northern. In this race, she got a very nice ride from Edwin Maldonado. She got to the lead, she got a little bit of a breather, and she's strong under the wire. She certainly didn't look like a 16-to-1 shot, but as you mentioned earlier, this race was kind of dominated by speed horses. You'll see Tea in Conversation get up for 4th in this race, but there's not a lot of other closing going on.
No, that's Tea in Conversation there in the orange and purple, rallying late. I don't know. This horse, she did have a pretty soft trip in there. She still ran, I thought, pretty well, Dan. They wanted to lead with her. They got it, and they just sort of let her roll up front. And I thought she ran fine in there. I also liked her maiden win prior to that. She's 2 for 2 going a mile on the turf, and I realized that she wired both of those fields. But I thought she looked good winning both times, and I thought she was the horse to beat in here, even though she's not the morning line favorite.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for our Sunday race of the day. It's the Lady of Shamrock. You're going with Tea in Conversation. Maybe a better setup this time around. And as you just saw in the replay, she was running at the end of that last race. I still think she has some upside.
I do too. I like her last race. I didn't, necessarily, again, think there was going to be a fast pace in here, but I'll hope that Timeform US is right and this race sets up for her.
Well, I'm a little bit dubious about the 3, the Wild Grazer, stretching out for the first time. I think a mile is well within her scope, and if she's going to do it, she's going to do it against this field. I think she's very well entered in the Lady of Shamrock. 3-4-7-2 for me, 2-7-3-5 for Mike. Sunday's feature is at the Great Race Place. It's our race of the day, the Lady of Shamrock. Good luck.